This video is about replacing these HID projection type headlights on a Ford Flex Limited. This is a projection style Xenon bulb, and thank you Ford, but it does take removing the bumper cover from the vehicle and completely removing this headlight assembly. We started out doing some exploratory surgery last night to see how hard it would be to get this bumper cover off. Turns out it was easier than we thought, so we actually went ahead and did it at night, which is not conducive to filming. These three 7/30 seconds on both sides need to come out, and inside here there's a push pin that needs to come out on both sides, and then under the hood there's a couple of 10mm bolts to come out. But it was easy peasy Japanesey. There's a 10mm bolt there and there, and you may find some push pins here that need to come out. Underneath you'll find that there are 3 push pins on the black part of this valance that need to come out. You do not need to mess with these screws right here. My indications were that the bulb would go out, but if I turned it off and turned it back on, it would come back on for a little while. I suspected the ballast, but in the end it was the bulb. The actual headlight assembly itself has to come out for you to change the bulb. There's 4 bolts to it. 1, 2, 1 in the front, and 1 on the side here. That's the reason the fender has to come off, obviously. This is the actual headlight casing itself that's upside down right now. I pulled it out and flipped it over. This is on the very bottom, and this is where the this is actually the ballast itself. You actually have to get the bulb out through there, which takes a little bit of wrangling to do. You have to kind of twist it around and move the cable, but it's possible. Here's the bulb. That's the back of it right there, and the high tension plug goes in one side of it, and this is the ballast and the cover, which comes off with T20 Torx. So this is the back side of the ballast with the high tension wire and a control wire. I believe that's for high beam, low beam. I popped this plug off right here inside by just using this long needle nose and just gently popping it off. It came right off. Once you get the cable off the bulb itself, all you gotta do is give it a little left flick, pops right out. This is what the new bulb looks like. I got 2 of them from Amazon for less than $100. I'm replacing both bulbs because it is easier to do it while that bumper cover is off. Don't you know? So I'm switching out the bad one and the opposite side, and I'm using the one that was actually working fine as a spare. This is where the bulb goes in. There is a little over center contraption at the very top. You have to make sure you get the keyway in there, and then you give it about a 1/16 of a turn to the right to get it to clip in. And this is kind of where you have to hold your mouth right. Plug in the high tension lead back to the bulb. It'll fit in there, but you just have to kind of wangle it in there and twist it around. Just be careful with the glass part of the bulb. So I've got the high tension lead plugged into the bulb here. You can bend this a little bit, just be careful. Know where you're going, obviously. Keyway, 1/16 of a turn or so, and it should pop right in there. Don't forget to put this on, or it'll be a hassle trying to get it on after you've already put the headlight back in. You can put it in there and make sure it clips in. That's the seal of the bulb. This whole bumper cover weighs about 10 to 15 pounds, but it's a little bit unwieldy. You could do this by yourself if you really wanted to. I'm using a little tiny bit of dielectric grease to help things slip back in where they belong, cable-wise, and help seal out a little bit of dust, prevents corrosion. Got this hung by myself. Very easy to do. I had these sticking out of my mouth, and I just put them in, just threaded. That way I've got the ability to pull this out and replug all my plugs that I need to plug in, 4 of them. Making sure everything works before I screw the fender back on. One thing I did discover is the fog lamps won't come on unless you have the key on. So Don't freak out. This is what it looks like while the fender's just sort of dangling in midair, only held on by the two top 10mm bolts on either side of the hood latch. So what you do is basically make sure this is over the top of that clip, that body clip right there. Make sure this is up far enough and give it a whack. This inner fender will line right up. 1, 2, 3. And there's a, inside here, there's a push pin that you need to get in. Just for reference, these very small inner fender screws, there's 6 of them, 3 on each side, are actually 7/32, not 5.5 or 5mm, 7/32, American. One thing you'll need to do for access, both taking off and putting on the bumper cover, is you'll need to start the engine and turn the wheels one way or another. So I had these hand tight and ready to tighten, but I couldn't get to them. And this particular push pin goes back on the inner fender. Also notice that you have all these 7/32 bolts along the bottom here. You do not need to touch those. The only thing you need to do is, there's 3 push pins that go there in the center and on the right. Don't take all these little 7/32 headed screws off.